Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the July user meeting. If you are watching this webinar, please type your agency name into the chat so we know who is on the call. And we are going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is our agenda. We're going to give you some updates on some things we've been working on, as well as some emails you may have received from us lately, and we're going to finish up with Q&A. First, so we have an update on the Clarity migration stuff. The case notes testing has been completed, and we gave our feedback to BitFocus, so we are waiting for them to do the final migration of the case notes into the live site. Oh, hold on. Okay. Okay. Yeah, just so you know, if you share, then everybody can see your screen. So, so we've done the case notes migration testing, and we're waiting for BitFocus to do that into final migration into the live site. It should be coming up very soon. We're waiting to hear the date from them. We've also completed the testing for the services migration with all of the custom services. So we are giving BitFocus our feedback on that, and they'll be correcting any issues that we provide them, and then they're going to do the migration for the custom services also into the live site. We are working on sending BitFocus an updated export for the coordinated entry migration for families only right now. This was postponed because there were some issues with the status formula on our manual prioritization list, and which was preventing us from figuring out exactly who should be migrated over. So now that issue is resolved, so we're going to move forward. Also, when we get live, when the family coordinated entry is live in Clarity, any access points, so those agencies that are completing VI SPDATs, will need to do the VI SPDAT as well as an HMIS enrollment in order to correctly capture the client's chronically homeless status. So we have that information. And also, so right now, when we've been receiving documents for coordinated entry clients, we've been combining them into one document, one PDF. And when we migrate into Clarity, these documents will be separated so that a user can easily see which documents a client has on file. So 2-in-1 will be working on separating those documents out, definitely for the families. And we may also end up doing it for the individuals, even though they're not migrating in right now, so that all of their documents can be available in Clarity, even prior to the individual migration to Clarity. I'm going to take a quick look, see if there's any questions so far. Looks like no, so I'm going to keep going, but feel free to ask any questions as you think of them. Okay, the next item is the HMIS policies and procedures. So over the past couple of months, we've been working with the Data and Performance Management Subcommittee to review and modify the policies and procedures. We took it to the COC board once, and they had some more feedback. So we made some more revisions, took it to the data and subcommittee last week, and we'll be bringing hopefully the final product to the COC board meeting today. So the biggest changes in the policies and procedures is that any requests for regional or sub-regional data, so data for the county as a whole, or maybe cities within the county, that kind of thing, they must be requested using a data request form. And if the request meets any of the criteria in that table, it has to be approved by the COC board. So essentially, Any data requests that come in for HMIS data from someone not participating in HMIS is going to need to be approved by the COC board. And for those of you, pretty much everyone on this call that is participating in HMIS, if you have a data request for COC level data, it would only need to be approved if it was for aggregate system, or sorry, for de-identified client level data, meaning if for some reason you wanted to see client, like raw client data without identifying information so that you could do your own analysis, that would need to be approved. If you wanted any data for use in research or for media release or other public use, it would also need to be approved. But this does not mean, so if you email us and say, I want a report of all of my clients, that doesn't need to be approved. It's only if you wanted to be able to see data for like everyone in HMIS. That's the kind of request that would need to be approved. So in addition to this change, we also added a data quality plan to help improve our data quality overall, hopefully. Another decision that was made by the group is that police departments cannot see client history in HMIS, and they cannot participate in HMIS unless they receive COC board approval or if they're receiving federal funding, like ESG funding. And the reason for this is to protect a client's privacy and ensure they're being served correctly and that the information in HMIS is not being abused. Finally, there was also feedback that clients should be able to easily see who is who's entering data in HMIS, and therefore which agencies would be able to see their client history if they chose to sign the client consent form. So to accommodate that, we have updated the client consent form, which Adriana will talk about a little bit later, and we have posted the agencies. So Adriana's going to show you where all of that is, but the purpose was to give the clients transparency in terms of who could see their data that was entered in HMIS. So Adriana will talk about it a little bit later. So those are the biggest changes to the policies and procedures. We are hoping that the policies and procedures will be approved today by the COC board. If it is, we will send out the full document to all of the users. And once that's sent out, we're going to update the user agreement form that's on HMIS that you signed the first time you logged into Clarity. And we're going to add something that says, like I have reviewed and agree to follow the HMIS policies and procedures document or something like that. So when that's done, you'll have to sign that user agreement again when you log into Clarity. All right, so I'm going to stop for a second, see if there's any questions. Looks like no, so I'm going to keep going. Next up is Casey. Casey? Casey? I'm kind of guessing. Casey?
Hi.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. This information about Looker is the same as what was included in an email that you should have received a couple days ago, basically just a link to the recorded webinar that we had with Clarity on July 10th. And we wanted to bring this up now to see if anyone has anything to say about Looker, if you've tried it yet, what you've done with it, what you want to be able to do with it. So we have the link to the recorded webinar as a knowledge base article in the help desk, and we will definitely be creating more knowledge base articles about Looker in the future. So if anyone has anything to say about Looker, anything you want to be able to do that you think we could write an article about, either let us know in the chat or you can submit a ticket to the help desk. And doesn't look like we have any questions on that so far.
We had a follow-up about the policies and procedures. So everyone currently using HMIS will need to sign a new user agreement. Yes, and the reason is because the data group said adding it to the existing user agreement was preferred to having to sign a separate policies and procedures acknowledgement form like we've done in the past, and then the agency's administrators have to keep track of which forms the client or the user has and hasn't signed. So this is this allows there to only be one form, and you sign it right when you log into Clarity, so you don't have to send anything. It's automatically added to the system, and it just is more streamlined for everybody. So yes, when the policies and procedures is approved, we'll update the user agreement with a line or two about agreeing to the policies and procedures. Okay, so are you ready for the next one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so these two questions used to show up for everyone in ADSYS Tech, the one asking what city the client was residing in or sleeping in or whatever immediately prior to entry into the project. And in ADSYS Tech, we also had you guys entering the client's last known permanent address, their full address. Right now, only CFCOC funded projects are answering these questions, but on August 1st, they will show up on the entry screen for all clients. So the biggest change, the city, what city were you in prior to project entry? That question is going to be the same. It'll still be a drop down with all the cities in Orange County in addition to some other options. And then the last known permanent address question is no longer asking for the client's full address. It's just asking for the city in which the client last lived in a permanent housing situation for 90 days or longer. So that question will be a text box for you to type in the city that the client was last permanently living in. Erin, can you go to the next slide? So this is what it will look like on the entry screen. It's just at the bottom of what we currently have on the entry screen. So it's after the income and health insurance questions. So you'll answer the prior city question for the last known permanent address, and then what city were you in immediately prior to project entry. The CFCOC questions will not show up for projects that don't receive CFCOC funding. Then you'll save it just like normal. So it'll just be 2 questions added to the entry screen.
And I don't remember, but I'll be starting August 1st, so everybody has time to prepare for that. All right, I'm going to move on. HMIS survey, just a second. Chris?
Okay. Hello. Yes. So our second HMIS user survey has been posted on OCHMIS.org. So once this user meeting is over, please go to our website and take the survey. It takes about 7 minutes. And it's just going to go over some questions we have for you guys about the Clarity migration and a few other goodies. So please be as honest as possible, be as detailed oriented as possible. It'll only take 7 minutes. And thank you.
Okay. All right, Maya, I think you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, hi. Okay, so last week we sent out an email to all the agency regarding the housing move-in dates. And so as mentioned in the email, according to the HUD data standard, the housing move-in date must be collected once between the project start date and the project exit date at its occurrence point. for all our H and PH projects. So since the occurrence point could potentially take place at one of the 3 stages of the enrollment, Clarity has made the housing move-in date available in 3 different tabs in HMIS, which is the enrollment screen, the exit screen, and the status update screen. And then again, because Clarity, HMIS does not flag multiple entries for this field, the issue is it's causing clients to have multiple housing moving dates when there should only be 1 housing moving date for each client. So there are 2 possible solutions that we think can fix it. The first one is remove the field in both the status update screen and exit screen and only keep it in the enrollment screen, which we think it will probably be better because this will avoid issues for multiple housing moving dates. Or we can remove the field in the exit screen and keep it in the enrollment and status update screen. It's pretty much an open discussion. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts?
So the benefit of the first option is that the housing move-in date field is only in one place, so you can't duplicate it. The second option allows you to enter the housing move-in date as it occurs. So it could possibly be less navigation for your users. However, the field's in both places so that there's a possibility of duplicating the housing move-in date and causing data entry errors because they're different. So far I am seeing one option, please, at enrollment, at enrollment, number 1, at enrollment. So sounds like everybody is thinking that the field should only be available at enrollment, so that's fine. We can go ahead and do that for all of you. And we'll try to do that and have it updated by the time we send out the meeting minutes. So that we can communicate that out to everyone at the same time. We did get a question. Data standards began for PSH and OPH on October 1st, 2017, so this applies to clients with a start date of 10/1/17 or later. So the question is, the housing move-in date field has been required for rapid rehousing projects for a few years now, but it's only been required for permanent supportive housing and other permanent housing since October. So what HUD wanted vendors to do is for any clients that were active before October 1st for permanent supportive housing or other permanent housing was to automatically update their housing move-in date to match their entry date, because that's how the data was entered before. Obviously, AdsTech didn't do that correctly for everyone. So we're working with BitFocus to do that for all prior clients now. So yes, starting October 1st, only new enrollments, you would have to enter the housing move-in date as of the date the client was placed in permanent housing. And we also were going to go over a little bit later the when you should be entering project entry dates for each project type, so you have clarification. But yes, the housing move-in date for rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and other permanent housing should all reflect the date the client was placed in a permanent housing unit. Okay, so thanks for your feedback. We'll add to the user meeting minutes that when it's been updated so that you can only enter the data in one place. So entry date by project type, what I was just talking about. So, okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Elizabeth. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
So, as you're probably aware, the date one enters into HMIS as a client's project entry date depends on the project type. So we're going to use this table to go over which date corresponds to which project type. And we hope that going over this information will give you confidence that you're entering the correct date for this data element. So let's start off with street outreach. For street outreach projects, the date you enter into HMIS for the project start date should be the date of first contact with the client. And for emergency shelters, this date should be the night that the client first stayed in the shelter. Night by night shelters, which is the shelter type for most of our projects, except for alternative sleeping location and armory projects, should allow their clients to re-enter as necessary without exiting the client for about a period of 90 days. And then the project start date for transitional housing projects or safe haven projects is the date that the client moved into the residential project. So that is essentially the date of the client's first night in this residence. The permanent housing project start date definition is very important. Permanent housing includes rapid rehousing projects, and these projects should enter the date the client was determined eligible as the project start date in HMIS. So what does that mean exactly? This date corresponds to the day when 3 of 3 requirements are fulfilled. So first, that the information provided by the client or the referral indicates that the client meets the criteria for admission into your project. Number 2, the client indicates themselves that they want to be housed in your project. And then number 3, the client is able to access services and housing through the project. So the project has an opening or will have one soon. So the permanent housing project start date definition is important because, as you can see, it will most likely differ from a client's housing move-in date. It's unlikely that a client will be determined eligible and move into housing within a PH project on the same day, although it is possible. So keep this definition in mind when you're enrolling your client into your PH project. And then lastly, for services projects, which are include services only projects and homeless prevention projects, the date that you enter as a project start date in HMIS is the date the client first began working with your project, and it generally coincides with the date of the first provision of service. So that's about it for entry date by project type. If we don't have any questions, we can move on to CFCOC.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions from anyone, so we'll keep moving, but feel free to ask as you think of them. All right, CFCOC data entry.
Okay, so CFCOC funded agency should have received an email detailing CFCOC data entry requirements in HMIS. So as of July 1st, 2018, all CFCOC agencies are required to enter CFCOC data into Clarity. So, however, in Clarity, there's much less data to track. Agencies are only required to track CFCOC entry questions, which include a question regarding whether or not the client is receiving services by this funding type, and the bed night start date and the bed night end date, as well as the CFCOC services. So those CFCOC services are the same as they were in the old versions of HMIS. However, the actual data entry process is, of course, different in our new system. So we're going to do a quick demo about how to enter these data. So let me share my screen. Okay, so you should be viewing my screen now. First, we're going to go over how you enter or update the CFCOC enrollment screen questions. You will first search your client on the search page, but I'm going to just click on my client that I have over here. And if they're already enrolled in a program and you're updating the entry questions, you can just go to programs and then click on that program enrollment. But I'm going to actually enroll this client. So I have my client, I go to programs, and then I'm enroll them in the CFCOC project. And this is the mother, so I want to include the child, which makes this family eligible for CFCOC services. Then I click enroll. So you just go ahead and enter all this data. I'll just do an example. So these are the questions that you're used to seeing. And this is the question that we previously talked about. I'm just gonna put something there. And let's see. Okay, so this is where you will find the new CFCOC question. So is this client receiving services funded by the Children's and Family Commission of Orange County? If they are, you will select yes, and then you'll enter the bed night start date, and then we'll go over the definition of that in the next slide. And you'll notice that you can save it without entering the bed night end date. So you're not going to want to enter the bed night end date until you know the last date that this client is receiving bed night services. So I can click save without having to enter that information. And then for the services, I'm going to go to somebody that I already enrolled in the CFCOC project. So you go to your project, your CFCOC project, and I'll just show you also how you would update the question. So if this was a client that you had already enrolled before we made these questions available, you can just go to the program, go to the enrollment screen, and then you'll find the questions down here, and you can update them. And then just click Save Changes. But let's say you've already done that. First, you have to answer those questions, and then you can provide services to the client. So within the program enrollment, you go to the Provide Services subtab, and then you find the CFCOC category. So you might have other categories here depending on other funding sources you have for your project. You click on the CFCOC category, and then it reveals all these services that you're familiar with from the old version of HMIS. You can click on one, and then you'd enter the start and end date, and you can put a note here if you want, and then click submit, and you'll receive that message that went by really quickly. But let's do another one just so you can see the message. So it will let you know that your service has been placed. So there's a quick message there. If you want to make sure, you can go to the history subtab. Yeah, and then you'll see here, I've already provided some other services yesterday, but these are the two services that I just provided. Okay, so that's about it for the way that you enter the data. I want to go over some tips about data entry. So first off, the bed night start date is the date of the client's first bed night provided by CFCOC. So this is not necessarily the same date as a program start date. It's just the date that they first received this bed night service that's funded by CFCOC. And then the bed night end date coincides with the last date the household is eligible to receive CFCOC funded services, either because the child ages out and is no longer between the ages of 0 to 5, or because the client's exit. So you want to leave this field blank until the client no longer receives bed nights from CFCOC, and then you would enter that date and click save. And these bed night start dates and end dates are the way that we're going to be tracking CFCOC bed nights in projects. So unlike the old version of HMIS where you would enter a service, we're just going to be using these start and end dates to calculate the total number of bed nights provided to clients. And then for the services, you want to enter the services as they occur, and in most cases, the start and end date field should be the same date. And we're going to have a knowledge base article that goes over these definitions and the data collection requirements, and then also has an HMIS data entry guide. So when you receive this email, you also received an HMIS data entry guide. So we've created that into a knowledge base article that you can easily find on our website. And yeah, they'll be in the minutes, but you could also search the help desk for it. And that's it for CFCOC.
All right, updated client consent form. Adriana? Uh-oh. Okay, hold on. Okay, Adriana?
Okay, hi guys. Well, as Erin was saying, the client consent form was updated to include a link of all the agencies that are currently participating in OCHMIS. The reason why this was included is because the clients have the right to know exactly what are the agencies with whom you're sharing their information, as Erin already said. So the digital version of the form was updated in HMIS, and also a link with the list of agencies that are currently contributing data were included in the English and Spanish version of the forms. And finally, you can also find a printable version of that list in our website under contributing agencies here. So just to keep in mind, this list gets changed pretty often and also without notice. So it's always important to remind your clients that it's always better to go to the website to see the most up-to-date version of the list.
And we did include in the form that the wording was that they can either go on our website or that they can ask the agency that they are at, which means all of you. So if a client asks you to be able to see a list of the agencies contributing to HMIS, you should know where to find that information. And that's what this screenshot is for, to show you where that information is. So you can see both just the list of agencies. You can link to their website if you're interested, and there's also a Word document that you can print out if they want it also. Not seeing any questions, so I'm gonna move on.
Can I share my screen? Let me share my screen.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so you see in the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Yeah,
okay.
household management.
Okay, so I would like to give you an update on household management. Specifically, I would like to talk about how to remove a client from a household when this client is enrolled in a project with other household members. So first, I would like to give you a conceptual example, and then we will see how to do this in HMIS, okay? So let's suppose we have the Simpson household. So in the global household, we have Marge, we have Lisa, Homer, Bart, and Maggie. So they are all in the global household. And they're also enrolled as a group in the Springfield Homeless Shelter. But now let's suppose Marge wants to get a divorce. So she wants to leave Homer, she wants to leave the household, but she wants to still remain enrolled in the Springfield Homeless Shelter. So how do we do this in HMIS? So the first step that we need to do is to remove Marge from the global household. And this is a pretty easy, straightforward part of the process. So once we do this, the second step is to remove Marge from the group enrollment that she has in the Springfield Homeless Shelter. So, and in order to do this, what we need to do is to exit her from the project. So I know this sounds a little bit confusing, but it will make more sense when we go to HMIS. So after we remove her, the third and last step is to re-enter her into the same project, into the Springfield Homeless Shelter project as an individual. So that is the only way in which we can remove her enrollment from the group enrollment that she shares with all the Simpsons. Another thing that it's important to understand here, and I want you to remember, is that it is not enough to only remove the client from the global household. We also need to remove the client specifically for all the group enrollments that the client has with the rest of the members. So for example, in this case, Marge is only enrolled in one project in the Springfield Homeless Shelter, but if she were enrolled in other projects with the Simpsons, we would have to do a step 2 and a step 3 for each one of those projects, okay? And the reason for that is because any changes that we do in the global household don't have any effect on the project enrollment. So that's why step 2 and step 3 are necessary. So after the separation, the result after the 3 steps is that Marge will be alone in the global household by herself, completely separated from the Simpsons, and she will also be enrolled in the Springfield Homeless Shelter by herself as an individual. Is there any questions so far?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet.
Okay, so now let me go and let's see this in HMIS. Can you see HMIS now?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now what I would like to do is to do these 3 steps in HMIS so you would see how the process is. Okay, so as we said, the first step was to remove Marge from the global household. So in order to do that, we have to go to the head of household profile screen, which in this case is Homer's. And once we're there, we have to click the Manage button next to household members. So then we have to locate March, which is here, and then click the Edit icon next to her name. Okay, so once the Edit Global Household pop-up window appears, we have to select Exit Household, and we have to enter the date in which she's leaving the household. So the date in which she is divorcing Homer, and let's suppose that's today. And then click Save. So now we have officially removed March from the global household, and we know that because she doesn't appear here anymore under household members. And you can see here under household history where you can see like the time period that she belonged to the Simpsons house. Okay, so first step, check. So now let's see the enrollment for March. Okay, so let's open March enrollment. Let's go to programs, and let's open the Springfield Homeless Shelter, which is the only enrollment that she has. Okay, and once we're here, we can see that she's, even though we just removed her from the global household, she is still enrolled with all the Simpsons family. And we can see that because they are all appearing here under the program group members. This is what in Clarity is known as the program household. And we can also see that this is a group enrollment because we see that the program type is group. Okay, and this is why I told you guys that the fact of removing a client from a global household doesn't have any impact in the enrollment. So this is how I want to show that. So now we need to remove her from these group enrollments. And how do we do this? The way in which we remove her is by exiting her from the project. And we do this as usual. We click the Exit tab and make sure just to select March and then End Program. And here in the program exit date, we need to enter the date in which she is leaving the household. So as I said, let's suppose that date is today. And also in destination, we should select the project type of this project. So since the Springfield Homeless Shelter is an emergency shelter, we select emergency shelter, and the rest of the questions are answered as usual, and then save and close. Okay, so now that we have exited her, second step, check. The third step is to re-enter her into the same project, but as an individual. So we go to the Programs tab, and then under Programs Available, we select the Springfield Homeless Shelter, which is the same project that we just exited her from. And then we click Enroll. And this enrollment process is as usual. The only thing that that I want to point out here is that the project start date should be the same as the date that she's leaving the house. That is today. And also, the type of residence should be emergency shelter because that's the type of project that we are enrolling her into. And then save and close. And that would be it. So now, if we go to the Programs tab, we can see that March has 2 enrollments for the same project. So the first enrollment reflects the fact that she was enrolled as a group with all the Simpsons family and is a group enrollment. Now, the second enrollment, which is the one that we just created, reflects the fact that she divorced the family, that she left the family, and is a group individual enrollment. Another thing that I want to point out here is that the end date of the first enrollment should be the same as the start date of the second enrollment. So this is because we don't want any gaps in her enrollment. So that's how we check that we did things correctly, and that will be it. Is there any questions?
And just to clarify, I know you said that the prior living in the new enrollment should reflect the type of project type.
Mm-hmm.
But it should also reflect that in the destination also, because she's exiting and re-entering the same project.
Yeah.
It should be
Yeah.
I think it was emergency shelter.
Yes, the destination when you're exiting her from the first enrollment. When you're exiting her from the group enrollment, the destination should be also emergency shelter. And also we're going to send, with the minutes, we're going to send a knowledge-based article with step-by-step guide on the process that I just explained. Actually, it's already posted online. It's already under household management. If you guys want to see it, it's already there.
We got a question on how this will affect the program's performance for exit, since it's not an actual exit, but only administrative.
That's the million-dollar question. That is the reason why we kind of delayed this explanation. These don't have any effect on project performance. We already confirmed with HUD, so that's why we're waiting for that confirmation to be sure that this is not going to affect anything.
And the reason for that is on the system performance report, it's looking at the client as a whole. It's not looking at the client's exit and enrollment. So for example, if the client exits and then re-enters on the same day, for the purposes of the system performance report, the client is considered a stayer, and therefore they would not be included on the system performance report for leavers. So that's why this will not negatively impact the system performance report.
That's why these dates need to coincide. I told you that the end date of the first enrollment should be the same as the start date of the second enrollment. It's really important that it's the same, so we don't have any gaps. Precisely, we don't have any problems in the system performance.
We had another question: what will happen if you pull a report with a time period where she's part of the family and a single? And I think that mostly depends on what the report is and what it's looking at, because if it's looking at entry dates, it could only pull the latest one if it's the only one that occurred during that time period. Same thing if it's only looking at exit dates. So we have to know more specifics to be able to answer that question. For PSH, this now has a client who is entering from a non-homeless location. Does that also affect this? So like we said on the system performance report, it does not impact it. On your APRs, if you're a permanent supportive housing project, and also on the project performance reports, on the APR, it'll show up as an entry from permanent supportive housing, which is the same as any other client that you may move from one PSH project to another because the fit is better. And HUD has already said that's okay. You just have to be able to provide an explanation on that, and you should include that in the narrative section of your APR. For the project performance reports, we are including entries from permanent supportive housing projects as neutral entries, so they don't help or hurt your entries from homelessness measure. Okay. Seems like questions have slowed down. Adriana, did you have anything else to add?
No. Just check the knowledge base article once it's sent.
Okay. All right. Casey?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So our schedule for user meetings is somewhat wonky right now. We've been trying to get them scheduled to not coincide with HUD's system admin webinars that happen usually every month. So we're proposing that for our next meeting, we have a webinar on September 5th instead of an in-person meeting in August, and then we will have our next in-person meeting on October 3rd. So if anyone has any questions or concerns about that, let us know in the chat. Otherwise, that's the schedule that we will go with.
And moving forward, we want to have the user meetings on the first Wednesday of the month. I'm not seeing any problems with that. Oh, hold on. Everyone seems to love it. Okay, so we've reached the end of the content that we've prepared. So now is the time, if you have any questions you want to ask us, or any quick demos maybe, or anything like that you would like us to go over in our remaining time, feel free to put that in the chat. We also, when is the administrators training? We are going to be posting it online, similar to the HMIS Part 1 and HMIS Part 2 training. So it'll be at your convenience, at your desk, probably under an hour, I'm thinking. We're hoping to release it by the beginning of September. It's in final review, so hopefully very soon. Also, like Chris mentioned, the HMIS survey is now available. He did post it in the chat box, so if you want to link right to there from here, you can go ahead and do it. Or we'll also be putting it in the minutes and sending out a reminder email. Your feedback is helpful to us. It helps with our planning and changes that we can make to make things easier for all of you. So the more detailed you can be, the more it helps us. I'm not seeing any other questions. I'll give it one more minute, but other than that, that's all we have. Just waiting to see if anybody's in the middle of typing a question. If you haven't already, please type in your agency name in the chat so we know who's here. But it looks like the questions have stopped, so we're going to shut down the webinar. We'll be sending out the minutes this week, and with all the links and the survey. And I hope this was a helpful webinar for you, and thank you all for attending. And we will see you at the beginning of September. Thanks, everybody.